This podcast has been brought to you by Voyager's World. We are building the most amazing hospitality network. Please visit our website, join us for free, and start participating.
Welcome to the podcast. This is my friend John Fischer, and we have a very interesting story to tell to you. When I had the idea of doing this podcast, at first I thought it would be really, really cool to have people like him. And actually, your name was the first one that came up, man.
Thanks.
Exactly because of what happened in 2010, which I will start the podcast telling that story. Which is simple. I went to Boston in 2010 to finish some of my personal business there. I had a house that I was selling and some things like that. And during that, I went to a party where we met. It was it was a couch surfing event, and there we met. And as far as I know, it was your first couch surfing event.
Yep, and you were the first person that I met.
Yes, and then it was exactly around the point that you were either quitting your job or leaving some job, and then you were going to start traveling. I would like you to tell us what was it and what happened that time.
Right. So I had been living in the Boston area for about 10 years, really, ever since I had graduated college. I had two different jobs. I was currently working at a software company selling software. I had been the first employee of that company. I had been there for about 8 years, and I decided that I was going to leave that job and go traveling for 5 months just to do it, just to see the country, visit some people, and just take a break from it all. And then I had heard about the couch surfing website and wanted to learn more about it. So I found a couch surfing meetup in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and showed up to with people about it. And that's where I stumbled upon you. And you were the person kind of getting everyone together. Who's here for couch surfing? And making sure everyone had someone to speak with. And geez, what was that? That was about 6 years ago now.
Yes, that was 2010. I'm sure
Yeah, absolutely.
because it was in the middle of a trip that I did across America, and I got back to Florida in June. You were in the very beginning of your the traveling
I
part of
really,
your life.
yeah, I really hadn't
And you
barely
had,
started.
yeah, you had a lot of interesting questions at that time about it, and I could watch from a distance the way you learn about it, the way you develop a personal lifestyle, you design your lifestyle around that.
Hmm.
Because we have been in touch all this time, I have been watching how exactly you progressed, and all those transformations, and also had an opportunity to visit you in California once or twice, right? I
Yeah,
visit you in
you
Los
crashed in my
Angeles,
apartment. Yeah.
yeah, and then again. No, you were not there for the beginning of the second, right?
Right. Then I saw you in Miami just about a year ago.
Yes, we met in Miami. That's correct. So tell us a little bit about what you have been doing this 6 years.
Oh man, that's that's a lot. Um, I mean, I've been traveling off and on for almost 6 years since the summer of 2010, and I have uh, yeah, my first 5 months of it, I just had no job, and I'm a photographer, which we haven't really touched on yet. But my photography business was really nothing at that point. So that 5 months, I was just out there seeing the country, taking pictures, and just having a good time and meeting up with people. Since then, I have had a job that I work over the internet. I sell ads in a trade publication for the beverage industry, and I do that purely over the internet and over my cell phone, and I can work wherever I want. And I'll actually be working today after this, and I'm in a bedroom at the house of my brother's sister-in-law in rural Oklahoma. So I can, I just wander around and go where I want, see what I want, meet up with all sorts of various people from with different connections, and I build my photography business and work my job. And
You have been traveling uh, a lot. I remember, following your travels, not full time, but it has been significant. You travel far more than most people would do. Um, and but at the same time, you have been developing this photography business, or would I say you have been developing your photography fashion, passion, and let it be a business, let it be a smart business. But there is
right,
some
yep,
philosophy behind that that I would like to expose here, because the I always ask people, so how do you pay for this? How do you make this reality? Because that helps our viewers and our listeners to know how it is that you made it happen. But I also like to show that you can do this thinking of a business in a way that is super ethical, or that is very passionate, or you can set standards that you don't go below them at all. No, that you set your minimal standards and you stick to them. And I think that that's what you have been doing, and you have been discovering what those standards are and then sticking to them. And that is something that people rarely do in any business. In most businesses, money profit comes first, and profit comes second and third. There is no concern with what is the long range view of what it is they want to do, and there is no concern with the standards. So let's talk a little bit about those standards first, because we had a lot of discussions about it's not just being a photographer. What is the kind of photographer that you want to be?
right, sure. Um, yeah, so I'm not sure where to start there, but I mean, I will say I could pretty much make this whole lifestyle work without selling any photos. Um, so my photography business is going well enough that I sell a significant number of photos each year. I have been the last few years, and I assume it's going to continue. But that said, the other job that I have does make me enough money to get by. So I mean, literally, I'm never desperate for the that next sale of a photo, and because of that, I've decided that I'm just going to run the photography business exactly the way that I want to. I'm going to take photos that are interesting to me, and if that translates to something interesting enough for someone to purchase from me, then that's great. And if not, I'm just not going to worry about it, because I wouldn't find any pleasure in that. So so basically, because I'm confident in my ability to make enough income other ways outside of the photography, as I said, I'm going to run the photography business exactly how I want, take the pictures that I want. If I think something might sell a lot of copies, but it's not interesting at all to me, I'm just not going to do it. And I'm not, and I also don't use certain tools that I don't really, to market my photography, that just seem like way too much work and not interesting to me. For example, like Twitter is something that personally doesn't resonate with me. And I get people all the time saying, "Hey, man, you've got to do Twitter. Oh, you're missing out on doing Twitter." And I'm just not going to do it. I just, I'd rather be out taking more photos than sitting around trying to build a new following on Twitter that just doesn't even resonate with me. So,
I have someone on the team of volunteers that is helping build Voyager's World, and one of them is an expert on Twitter. That's Moonbao, and she keeps telling me, "Oh, you have to use Twitter and all that." So, but at some point, I told her, "Look, we will, but I need you to do it because I Twitter was never part of my thing, so it still feels foreign to me. I don't know how to use. I don't know how to explore the that media correctly yet. So I said, you do it for a while. I'll watch you, and then I'll learn. But I don't even know how to approach that world yet. I just set up the account and left it there for now. Uh, but I know
Yeah.
that it works, that it has some impact, because when I was doing the run, my second run across America, some people met me that I always ask, so how did you know about this? And some of them said, oh, someone tweeted about it, and so I knew, and then I went to your website and I discovered that you are here. So I know that it works. I just don't understand it very well yet, but we'll get there. But in the yeah, in the case of your photography, many times we had interesting conversations about what is the kind of photography that you want to do, and the fact that you don't want the marketing side of it to become so predominant or so hard that it distracts you from life. That I thought that was a very cool thing. Uh, yeah, and but the other aspect was, I remember one conversation about copyright, about when people use your material, or they end up exploring it, and and I share my views about it with you. But how is it that you think about it today? What is your idea on copyright, on selling stuff, and how do you think about your art, rather than just about photography?
I mean, one thing I will say on that topic is that I'm just not as worried as many people are about my photos being quote unquote stolen, for various reasons. I mean, if somebody's making money off of my photo, yeah, I'm going to be upset, without my permission. But if somebody takes my photo and puts it on a website and they're really not making money on it, I just don't worry about it. It's just, you know, I don't want to interrupt my life to get upset about something like that. And I'm also not going to spend my time trying all sorts of ways to protect myself from that. That probably won't really work that well anyway. For example, I've got an opinion, but for the personal way that um, about watermarking photos. Watermarking photos being when somebody puts their name, on the digital file, or I could write John Fischer Photography and put it in the corner or right across the middle of the photo. I personally don't do that, just because I kind of want to just put it out there and have it be about the photo, and make people feel like I trust them. And sometimes people will take advantage of that trust and use one of my photos without my permission. But I think the net positive of people feeling that trust, and is a good thing. And maybe they'll become a customer because they feel like this guy trusts me and I trust him. I'm not sure. Is that what you were hoping to get at?
Yeah, that is the area that I wanted to get in,
Yeah.
because I know a few photographers, and we know the industry in general, or the music industry, and people are just now evolving into a more uh, uh, I would say a more sensible understanding of what the market is, and how to protect their interest, of course. if someone is making money out of it, then you should protect your commercial investment on this. But
Right.
but freaking out about everyone that copies something or everyone that does anything, it's a waste of time. It's
Right. I
I
mean,
don't see the value on that.
right. Here's another way that I look at it. I got seriously into photography in 2009. All this stuff existed. Every way to steal a photo existed. People were, also, people who ran magazines were requesting that professional photographers give them a photo for free.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, which was a relatively new thing. And I just knew it. I read about it. I knew this was all coming at me, and I
Mm-hmm.
chose to go down this path anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why I'd have much of a right to complain just because I got into it knowing that. And I also try to be very cognizant of the fact that I'm trying to make a business. I do have a business. I catch myself saying trying to make a business. It is a business, trying to grow it into something much larger.
Uh-huh.
Doing something that people enjoy. People spend a lot of their own money
Mm-hmm.
to buy camera equipment and go out and do it purely as a hobby and never try to make a penny off of it. So if I'm trying to make money off of something that other people do as a hobby, I have to be cognizant that there's going to be you know it's going to be a challenge, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not, and a lot of people aren't going to think that it's worth spending money on because they just think that it's something that people do for fun. And
Mm-hmm.
if some people don't get that, that's okay, and that's not something that's gonna bother me.
Okay. Recently, we have had some conversations about the way that you perceive yourself, and I think that went in a brilliant direction, which is
Oh, boy.
that you are not that. Yeah, no, I think that move was brilliant. In which you one day you said, "I'm not a photographer. I am a storyteller."
Oh,
Just
you told me that.
or maybe I said that. Yeah, but to me, it is something that you really own. You totally own that. That you're not a photographer. You're a storyteller, and you use photography to tell a story. And
Right.
and,
That's
and tell
the
us
goal.
more about that. How is that working out with you now?
Right, sure. And the funny thing is I like to say it's a story that I have no idea what the ending is, and I don't know the story that I'm going to tell for much longer before, much before I tell the story. So um, basically, my favorite thing to do is to wander around the country, wander around. I won't call them back roads, but wander around some of the roads that a lot of people wouldn't take between places. Stay off the interstates, the state and county highways, oftentimes, and just see what I see and see if I can find scenes that kind of um, are unique to a place. They're somewhat unique in a way to the place that I visit, and they're not necessarily just the most beautiful scenes. And then I take a picture, and then I will, post about it on my Facebook page, and hopefully it tells a unique story. Hopefully it talks. It's something that again, just isn't the prettiest thing. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit on this one. I haven't talked about this too much.
I thought in the case of Vietnam, this aspect was very evident. You were making posts and comments about things that happened to you, and sometimes you were sending me messages, and then there were photos of it. So when I saw your photos, I was in my mind, I was associating them with the things that happened to you, and that's like watching a movie, but through
Yeah,
your photos.
yeah. All right, Vietnam. That might be a better example of it. So I went, just to give some background to everyone. I went to Vietnam for 2 weeks. a little bit less than a year ago, and I basically booked my flight, booked a hotel, booked a couple activities, but I didn't do much research. I avoided as much as possible any videos or photos of where I was going. So I went to a pretty, relatively small region of Vietnam. Vietnam's not even that big of a place to begin with, and I just went and I was just going to see what I see. Um, Spend a lot of time in the city in Hanoi, which is not that touristy of a city, and just kind of experience the place and see again see whatever I see and take pictures. And I really went in with the assumption that um, no one would ever buy any of the photos that I took, and that wasn't the goal. That my goal wasn't to take photos that people would put on their wall. My goal was to tell a story of what I saw and tell a story of my trip there. So I would walk around the city and take pictures and go back to my hotel room, and I would write about my day, write about the food that I ate, write about the challenges of dealing with another culture. And then I had these, really good photos to go along with it. And, obviously you enjoyed it, and, yeah, people reacted really well to it. And it's not something that I necessarily think I have the time, to do always. But yeah, I mean, that's really, that's my favorite way to do things. If I ever were to, find a way to have enough income without this other job that I do to just travel really full time. That's really the way that I would do it. Uh, and then the interesting thing is I have actually sold a couple of copies of the photos that I took because I think in a weird way when I freed myself up to be that way, I really took some great photos because you know in a strange way. So.
So by not having to sell them, you think it makes you more free to take a better photo?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, it's hard to explain, but basically, I mean, my biggest priority, I think, is to make my photos interesting. And if, one in every 10 or 20 of them is something that somebody actually wants to purchase to put on their wall, that's fine. Because I think, in the long run, the goal is to have people say, that guy's an interesting photographer, that guy's, a good storyteller, whatever. That guy's an interesting artist. And then they want to support you, or they see or they'll follow me on Facebook for years, and then they'll see that one photo that strikes them that they want to purchase. And that's fine.
Yeah. No, the only reason that I don't purchase a bunch of your photos to put on the wall is that I don't have walls. Because
Right. Oh yeah. You don't
I don't have a house. I don't have
which is
a
actually
place.
I think is a hilarious irony of my business is that I sell art for people's walls and I don't have a home.
You live in your head too.
Right. Yeah.
But the work. So today you work for a company that sells advertising, right? Is that
Right.
correct?
Well, yeah. So
Hmm.
basically, we are um, a media company for the soft drink. I say
Okay.
soft drink, the beverage industry. It's
Uh-huh.
mostly like sodas, juices, teas, things
Uh-huh.
like that. So we cover on a day-to-day basis. There are articles coming out on the BevNet website that talk about industry news and things like that. And there's a conference series that the company puts on, and there's a magazine. So the magazine is one of these things that the company does
Okay.
ads in the magazine. The interesting thing is I only sell them in currently four of the issues per year. Out of it's an 8 issue per year magazine.
Uh-huh.
So I have these deadlines that I work towards, and
Hmm.
then um, once this deadline is passed, I usually have a couple weeks of downtime to go traveling,
Hmm.
or or to really just take photos. Um, So
but in general, it's not stopping you from traveling. Even if you have to
no,
work, you can still do
no,
that from the road, right?
actually, so right now, I made a mention I am in Oklahoma,
Yeah.
and I've been on the road for this is the beginning of my fourth week that I've been on the road, and I've been working the whole time. So
Hmm.
basically, my plan on this trip has been that I've been staying in each house with various people for 6 nights. So I show up on Sunday, and I basically work during the week and get a few hours here and there
Hmm.
to go take pictures and explore whatever area I'm in. But
Hmm.
doing 5 or 6 hours of work every day, at least, sometimes more. Um, and then the following Saturday when I leave a place, I'll drive all weekend, or sometimes one of the times I didn't even have to drive all weekend. I just had to drive on Saturday to my next destination, and then kind of do it all over again.
Hmm. Um, so before we met, were you already like? Of course, you were already thinking of traveling because I met you on the first week of that transition. But
hmm
how did you get the travel bug? So how did that idea take over?
Most of that happened on the trip that I took to Costa Rica in 2008. Um, I've always enjoyed traveling, but it never really got me so hard. Like I really want to travel you know, more than what you can do when you've got a job to go to at a desk. I mean, I guess I had occasionally I kind of fantasized and told people that someday I would love to, wander around the U.S. for maybe a month. Try to get that sort of time off of work, but really nothing more than that. And then I was in Costa Rica, as I said. I had initially booked a flight to Costa Rica to just go, for the first time, I was just going to go to a foreign country by myself. And then, of course, when I told one of my friends that I was going, he asked me if he could come, and so he came along too, and that ended up being great. I'm glad he did. So I wasn't a solo trip, but then we were there for a week. It was Thanksgiving week, 2008, and uh, we were going out to bars pretty much every night and meeting people, and we were mostly meeting other travelers. And we met so many people that were from other countries who were traveling long term, and they'd say, "Hey, we're typical traveler questions. Hey, where are you from?" Oh, and I'd say I'm from the U.S. I'd ask where they're from, and they'd be from, Australia, Canada, or somewhere in Western Europe most of the time. Basically, where those are the types of the places people are from around the world, or New Zealand maybe. And they'd say, okay, how long are you traveling for? And I'd say a week. And they would look at me like I was nuts, and they'd yell and say, "Oh, you Americans a week?" Like, nuts. They're like, who travels for a week? And I'd say, how long do you travel for? And the answer would be a month, 6 months, a year.
Yes.
And I was asking how they do it. And they're like, I quit my job. They would just shrug their shoulders. I quit my job. And I'm like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do when you get back? Like, I'll get another job. There's just no big deal.
Uh-huh.
So that really got into me. And then there was one particular woman that I talked to this one night in Costa Rica after I had accidentally ordered um, way too much tequila because I didn't understand the buy one get one free sign. Um, and basically, I went up. I thought that I was paying. I ordered one of each flavor, and then the guy basically gave me two of each flavor, and I didn't really understand in Spanish that well, and
But
he basically tried to point out that if I that I had ordered four instead of two. So
uh-huh.
anyway, so anyway, after that. I ended up talking to this woman from Ireland, and she was just we were kind of had a similar conversation, and she just started telling me she's like it sounds like you should quit your job. She's like you should quit your job and go travel because I'd obviously at that point been telling her that it sounded intriguing. 'Cause she had done the same thing, and she just basically said, "Just do it. Like, what's wrong with you?" And it took me 14 months till 14 months later, but 14 months after that conversation, I did it.
I,
But
I,
anyway, I remember that night after she challenged me to do it, and after my too much tequila, I was kind of I sat there. I sat at the bar, just kind of staring at the ceiling, like thinking like how cool it would be to just go travel for a while, and and eventually I did it. You know.
I had a similar cultural shock, minus the tequila, in Miami when I went to the first meeting that I went to. There was like a lot of foreigners. Most of them were backpackers, and and it was the same. And it was the same situation. I was talking to these kids, a lot of them between 19 and 25 years old, and they were traveling. Some of them were traveling for months, and that hit me like, shit, it's possible. Like, can people actually travel for months at a time, and no job, and yeah,
It,
I
it was
had.
completely new to me that was even possible.
Exactly. It was completely under the radar for me because before I used to travel a lot, but I was a tourist. I would, fly to some place, rent a car, get a hotel, the usual things. And that meant that every trip would cost me more than $100 a day. That was in America. If I went to another country, it was between $100 and $200 a day. Uh, and then I met these kids that are traveling on $10 a day or less. um, I literally met people that I have a friend that spent 3 months in South America with $700.
Oh yeah,
That
that
is very
sounds
tight.
doable.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But of course, some people have a a greater threshold for discomfort and pain and uncertainty than others. But still, even if you just switch to backpacking and couch surfing and hitchhiking, $20 a day is a very comfortable budget. Even traveling in Europe.
One thing that I sometimes point out to people is that I really don't spend any more money on food than most people do. A lot of people they say, "Oh, it must get expensive eating on the road." And as a guy who I met in Florida told me, "There's grocery stores everywhere." He's like, "That's what you just have to tell people." I mean, I, a typical meal for me when I'm if it's excuse me, a typical meal for me if it's a day that I'm driving from place to place is I'll stop at a grocery store and I'll go in and I'll buy a roll, a yogurt, maybe a piece of cheese, maybe an apple or a peach or a couple of pieces of fruit. It'll cost me about $4 to $5, and I'll sit on the bench. I'll sit on the bench outside the grocery store. I'll look before I go in the grocery store. I'll look to see if there's a bench outside that I can sit on, and then I'll come out and I'll sit on the bench and just relax for a few minutes and eat some food and just get some fresh air. Then I'll get back in the car and go.
I often do the same. I buy a few things on the market, sit on my bike and eat while people ask questions. Because if you're sitting on the bike, people are always asking you questions, and that is a great opportunity to make more friends. So I love to do that. Try that. Try sitting on the hood of the Jeep, because you always travel on a Jeep, right? And people will approach.
Yeah, within the U.S., I travel in my
Yeah.
Jeep. Yep.
Yes. Uh, so what is in the future now? What are you going to do this year and next?
Um, so this I'm on my way. Well, it's funny I say on my way, considering that next thing out of Oklahoma is I'm gonna go south and even southeast from here. So I'm not. It's not exactly a direct route, but eventually around early March, I'm going to get to California, and then I'm flying to Hawaii for a month, where I've got someone to stay with there. And then I'm flying from Hawaii to Alaska. I'm going to Alaska for 3 weeks, and I've got someone to stay with there. Um, and then I'm going back to California, where my this whole time my car is going to be, my Jeep's going to be in front of a friend's house in San Diego, so he'll be able to keep an eye on it. And then I'm going to wander around California for a few months. So really, um, I don't think we really touched on this. I've kind of got a home base at this point in upstate New York, which is where I'm from. I don't have my own home there, but I've got friends that I stay with there, and it's kind of the home. It's really the home base of the business side of my photography. It's where I've got a customer base, and a lot of support there. So the goal is to eventually end up there around September, which will be that'll be 9 months of wandering around the country, which would be the longest that I've been away from there since 2012, when I really started establishing myself there. Um, and so I'll probably, after all this, head back there for kind of a few months, the fall and like the Christmas season.
I know that this is not your main theme for your photographs, but I just like to say publicly, what are your photographs that I like the most? There are a lot of photos that you took on the side of the road, and and I spent several months on the side of the road running across America. Uh, so every time I see one of those photos, it reminds me of that experience. So I am absolutely in love with those photos, and I'll put some of your photographs on this video to show to people. But uh, I really wish you keep doing that. Keep doing that kind of photography from time to time, because every time I see one, it re it revives that feeling that I had. Especially in the desert, and the ones you took in the West. They are very important to me. So I like to thank you for those.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad. I mean, I do. I really try to choose my subjects and the composition of my photos to, give people the feeling that they're there, as opposed to, taking out a zoom lens and just, maybe shooting a picture of a mountain in the distance, like, so say there's a beautiful mountain far away, I could get out the camera and get out the tripod and, shoot a really pretty scene, but there's no context. So, my that's just my personal style, is I like to really, have that road or something there, really, have something right in front of the viewer, to make them feel like they're standing there looking at it. And, I personally think that, going back to talking about telling a story, I think that tells more of a story of the place, that I'm at. But at the same time, I try to do it in a way that is visually appealing, and that's part of the challenge and the fun for me.
Man, I love your story. I love your story for the transformation, for the example that it is, to people, that you can think outside of the box, that you can transform a relatively classic lifestyle gradually into a very unusual lifestyle, but you don't need to jump as if you have to do a jump that is way too far. You can do that in a gradual way, and you did it, and it's a classic, good story of how you can go from one way to the other. And the way you think about it is very clear.
I will say so. In upstate New York, again, where I've got the home base, I work with a an art gallery in a few different ways. The owner of the gallery is kind of a consultant to me, and so actually, first of all, he's always telling me how good it is that I have this other job. Like he loves it. And he always he asks me when we meet for lunch. We have these lunch meetings, and he'll ask me half the time almost as much about how this, my non-photography work is going, than he'll ask me about the photography, because he thinks that that's really important to have that balance, and not be desperate to sell photos, even though he actually, I mean, I give him a percentage of my sales. He has a financial stake in me selling photos, but he still asks me about my other job, which I think is pretty cool and interesting. He also always asks me, I start talking about how do I get more Facebook viewers? How do I find more customers to buy my photos? And he says, he'll stop me and say, these are great things to worry about, but are you still taking more photos? Are you still taking great photos? Do you enjoy it? So I think that's really interesting. And then, he said, the number one thing he says of the business of art is keep making good art. And then the other thing that is interesting is through this same gallery, I do many um, art shows. Basically, they set up a tent, or they set up a bunch of tables indoors at various places that want to have an art show, and the owner of the gallery invites a bunch of artists to show their work, and I've done numerous of those, and through that I've met a guy by the name of Warren Hurley. He's a painter, and he's been a painter for, I don't know, I'd imagine over 30 years. And I believe he's a teacher as well. And I don't believe he's ever made a full-time living off of selling art, but it's something that he knows a lot about. And he follows my Facebook, and I've had numerous conversations with him. And he told me a year or so ago now, he said he liked what I did. He likes what I do. Excuse me. He likes my approach. He likes how I tell stories. He likes how just the general way that I market myself. And then he also said, just know, he said, if you think you're going to make it full time, like it could take you 10 years at least. He's like, I think you've got something big here, but just remember, it's going to take you a long time. And that's okay. Just keep on doing it. So I thought that was pretty encouraging and insightful.
Yeah, we had a conversation a long time ago that I would like to kind of replay it and see what you think about it today. Which is one day we were talking back to the subject of someone using your photo, or no, even better. I remember that it was one day you were talking about a photo that you printed and you end up not selling or something like that. And I said that piece, that object was not important. That you shouldn't confuse that the object of the photography with art, because art, that is not art. That is an object. The art is what you do. So, and then I came to you with the idea that art should be a verb, not a noun. So when you think of the photography as, oh, this is my art, then it gets confusing. Because the art is what you are doing from the moment that you are there, taking taking the photo of a bridge, and editing the photo, and preparing and organizing your life around it. All that is the art,
Right.
not the photo itself. So what do you think of that?
Hmm. It's interesting. Yeah, I would agree with that, and I would say that I think of it all as a you know my entire collection of photos, my entire collection of stories, the entire way that I choose, yeah, as you said, the way that I choose to live my life is what's important overall, not one particular photo or not even a few particular photos. Um, I never assumed that, oh, if I take this one great photo of something, that that's going to be my break, because it's not, and it's a collection, and it's like the way you said it, the way that I try to tell a story, I think is important. For an example, a similar example of that is I had a hard drive crash before I had a good backup system a couple years ago, and I lost the original files for about 2 months worth of photos, including an entire drive across the country. And at first, I was worried about it, and I was, I was trying to find somebody who could recover it, and I was going to spend $1,300, and eventually, they everyone told me that they couldn't fix it, and I was worried. And kind of in hindsight, I said I would rather have that $1,300 to go spend on something else, to go travel, than to worry that that there's 8 weeks worth of photos that I don't have a large enough original copy to make a print of, because it doesn't matter. It's not, again, there's no specific photos are making or breaking what I do. It's just about, continually.
So much better to use the words to do a new travel, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, that is very clear thinking. I like it. I like it very much, and I would like to close on that note. This is awesome. I'm going to keep following your work and your travels. And next time that our paths cross somewhere, maybe in California, maybe somewhere else, we'll do another podcast and tell
Sounds
some
good.
some more travel stories.
All right,
And
cool.
John, thank you so much,
All right. Thank
and
you.
and very happy to have you here.
All right, cool. Talk to you soon, man.
All right.
We hope you like this podcast as much as we like to produce it. This has been made possible by the efforts of dozens of volunteers, supporters, partners, and visionaries that are helping us build Voyager's World. Please visit our website, join us for free, and start participating.